Such an open question. I was just at a national conference, and I think schools are just starting to get their heads around how to integrate AI. I mean, I think at Gunston, we think of AI within the broader theme of technology, right? And so, our goal is to kind of weave technology into essentially every subject in every discipline, but then also to have a very specific strand for students like Damian, for instance, who have a deep interest in computer science and want to be pursuing computer science to be able to do a deep dive academically. I think we're still kind of getting our head around chatbots and things like ChatGPT, and I think we're beginning to see some of the potential of that. And actually, Damian did a presentation for our trustees.
Definitely. I think it's inevitable to work its way into the classroom in any shape or form. And I think we should really embrace it as more of a learning tool rather than this thing to kind of stay away from. Because especially with the birth of the internet, when that sort of kind of kickstarted, everyone was kind of had a similar reaction, right? This thing that maybe we want to stay away from, but at the same time, it's such a great resource and tool to help us inside the classroom, to help us generate practice problems, to kind of practice on your own away from the classroom. So being able to have that other resource outside of the classroom and in the classroom to kind of supplement that learning is a really great resource, I believe. So you kind of have to understand where AI kind of originated to kind of get to that answer a little bit. And so AI has been a thing for a little while now, at least since 2016. And so it's really just been exploding recently because of the access that's been given to the general public. And so you can generate anything from full essays to theses, like you said, to research and term papers. I actually generated a sample assignment for Mr. Lewis for my AP Gov class as part of that trustee presentation. And I mean, I think Mr. Lewis can agree, it was a pretty good encapsulation of what the assignment was. There were a couple little, errors here and there that obviously Mr. Lewis would be able to catch, but as a student, it's important to understand that it's not 100% accurate. And a lot of, I think, where the trouble starts is students are leaning so heavily into this resource, thinking that it's 100% accurate to kind of generate or submit assignments. And that's kind of where the trouble arises in that
I mean,
sense.
you ask, I think, what is the fundamental question, which is, how do you teach critical thinking in the age of AI? I think about, I mean, maybe the example I would use would be something like maps, where, I confess that know how to use a map. I know, I actually know how to write directions down on a piece of paper, but I have not done that. In a long time, which doesn't mean, for instance, that you wouldn't teach students directionality. And so I think it's the question of trying to discern, like, what are those fundamental things that students need to be doing, and in some ways to bring some of those things into analog format, away from digital format, so students understand the deep structure of the concept, and then to be able to then allow them to take that and then to connect it to the tools that they have. I don't want to necessarily get into predicting exactly what education is going to look like 30 years from now, but I certainly know that from my perspective, the internet and those other digital resources are now supplementing what I'm doing, and is able to extend. For instance, today we were talking about the value of $20 in 1789. It's like, I guess I could use a slide rule to do that, or we could just use the Google machine to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we're still at the first steps with respect to chatbots and AI. I mean, we are at the point now where we have a kind of an internal team that's really looking at the technology, and beginning to try to formulate some additional, in the upcoming summer and the fall, some training and professional development for faculty. Because one of the conversations we have with Damien is, there's some people who really know how to use this, but there's still the vast majority of Americans who have no idea what the power of chatbots and AI could be. And so I think for us, we're at the front end. I think where we are, where schools are going, for instance, New York City has completely banned the use of AI, which I understand for a big public school district. We're not going to do that on the short term. In the same way, it's if you tried to ban cell phones, you'd have to turn the school into a police state to to enforce that. And so I think we're at the beginning of the what I would call the power assessment of that tool, and then also sort of the policy. So, but I think what's been great is that we're poised to take advantage of whatever trends seem to come along with that.
I guess